Welcome back to Yaffee Live, Talk Radio 102.3. As you know, I am Tennessee's voice of reason, Chattanooga's conservative conscience. We're here 1 to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday on the Talk Monster. And joining me, as he does every week at this time, is Brandon Lewis. He is the founder of the Tennessee Conservative. You can always read his stuff, the latest news in Tennessee politics and other news across the state at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Brandon, how are you today, sir?
Man, I'm great. How are you, buddy?
Doing good. So you seem to be in a good mood. Is that because of what the legislature is doing in the special session, or what do you think about it?
Oh, I'm just in a good mood in general. So I don't, I try not to let my mood be affected by what happens in the General Assembly. If so,
okay, good. That's a good plan.
There'd be too much sadness. You can't let exterior things outside of your locus of control affect your mood. I've discovered that.
Okay, makes sense. But what do you think about the bill that they put forward in terms of the special session?
I think there's a few things going on here. First off, personally, I dislike when, if you're in a state where 40% of your people are Democrats, and in my opinion, I think somewhere roughly around 40% of your congressional delegation should represent your state. That is my personally held belief. Now, but then you look at the national context and you look at being competitive as a party. And when you see a lot of the states that are in the Northeast, California, et cetera, that have essentially gerrymandered all of their Democrats or Republicans out of, disenfranchise them in federal offices, essentially is what they're doing. And so when one or two of them do it and swing the balance of power, as a party, you've got to take a look at what's happening in all the states and change your strategy accordingly. However, one thing I've not heard anybody talk about, which I think may be good long term, is if this gerrymandering, which is what it is, okay? Let's just call it what it is. It's gerrymandering all around, right? We have seen over the past, decade, if we're really going to get to a situation where we've just got blue states and red states, meaning if it's 45% Democrats and 55% Republicans, all the congressional maps are going to be drawn for Republicans or vice versa. The only thing that I can see as a good silver lining here is this. Southern states that are conservative are growing in their congressional apportionments. And so what you may see is if this gerrymandering continues, which I assume it will, unless there's some kind of Supreme Court ruling to the contrary, what it may mean is that all these blue states that are hemorrhaging population may discover that as people move to red states, now we've got a better, more competitive situation for Republicans in the House. But, as soon as something becomes established, it changes. Yeah. And so that may be a bad thing 50, 30 years from now. So I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, you're right. It's gerrymandering. No one's really denying that. It's just not racial gerrymandering anymore. See, that was the problem, is before they wanted more Democrat seats in the southern states. So they went to the courts and said, oh, racist. And then the courts would say, okay, and you get more Democrat seats. It wasn't really based on race. It was based on partisan politics. So now that they can't do it based on race anymore, Republicans can for partisan politics. And like you said, it's just payback. You can't look at states, the New England states, which are kind of divided, what you said, 60 Democrat, 40 Republican, but they're all Democrat seats. Until that kind of thing changes, it's really hard to blame Republicans for wanting to fight back against them.
No, I think you have to. It's unavoidable. And so essentially in the session, Yaffee, what we saw were 4 major bills that were passed. The first one removed Tennessee's ban on changing congressional districts between apportionments, which means essentially between the censuses.
Yeah.
Or censi. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that. And House candidates also, they passed another one so that House candidates could receive notice, be grandfathered in if they're already qualify, but if you're a Democrat and they've redistricted you and you've already qualified in that district, which has got Justin Jones up in arms because he was hoping to take that seat from Cohen in Memphis. I mean, now
Justin
you're in a
Pearson.
district that's
Yeah.
Pearson, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
It's unwinnable. And then another one, the new congressional map revised it, and then they allocated $3 million in a fourth bill to do all the paperwork and shuffling, probably relative to elections and redistricting and databases, and I don't know what else would be included in that, and to cover the cost of the session. So those are the four things that made it through, and of course, bills that were brought by Democrats didn't really make it anywhere, as you might imagine. So that's essentially where we sit. We'll see if other states follow suit with that. I'm not sure how that will go.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they are, mostly for the reasons we've cited. I'm speaking with Brandon Lewis. He is with the Tennessee Conservative. Read that story at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. They have great coverage there on the special session, including the fact that Tennessee Democrats are planning legal action to combat the results of this. So they do want to go back to the courts and scream racist or scream something. But what's the latest on that?
Well, you've got the House Democrat caucus chair, John Ray Clemens, and his goal is to lay, in his own words, legal foundation for legal challenges that are necessary to come and hopefully allow them to push those through the court system. Had Republicans been in the other position, they would do the same. This happens almost every time there's a bill that is passed where a group of people feel like it's unjust. They try to tangle it up in the courts, which is, again, just, good old fashioned politics. You can expect it. And so, and Justin Pearson, who's, that has to stink though, right? You try to climb the political ladder, you get some capital and notoriety, you raise some money, and you think you're going to run for Congress in Memphis. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you can run, but it's now a 45-55 Republican district. How do you like them apples? And so I can understand why they're doing that. If the shoe were on the other foot, Republicans would be doing it as well.
It's interesting though. I think about Memphis, and we always
I don't even like to think about Memphis, Yaffee. I don't know why you think about Memphis.
Okay, good point. Good point. I mean, it's so funny that you have people in Memphis government complaining about the state task force, and I'm like, they're like, oh, we should handle the crime. It's like, well, you didn't. That's the problem. And now the state had to come in and they're actually handling it. But anytime you have a big city like Memphis, it doesn't just affect the city itself. It affects the surrounding areas. It affects the suburbs. What happens in that city will affect what's going on in the suburbs of that city. But a lot of times, you have just Democrat representation in the city itself, and the people in the suburbs, they get really no say, and what's going on there. They just gotta have to put up with it. And maybe this could change some of that, but what do you think?
The thing is most of the negative impacts that come when you live in any state where a city or an area where a city controls the politics, you just kind of have to live with it. For example, you look at Georgia. I mean, it is essentially governed by Atlanta politics. And you can be down in St. Simons, you can be up in Northwest Georgia, where the political values and the values of the citizenry are completely different. And, they pass laws that affect you. And so that is one reason I've always been happy to a degree with the fact that in Tennessee, at least for now, and of course this can change, cities tend to grow at a rate that can't be matched most of the time, not always, by suburban and urban growth. But because we have the three grand divisions in Tennessee with the Tri-Cities, Knoxville, and Chattanooga, and then, probably, Nashville and Murfreesboro in the middle division, and then Memphis in the west, we still have suburban and urban, or suburban and rural more or less. But the cities always end up mucking it up, in my opinion, politically most of the time.
Well, yeah. And that's why, if we split up representation a little bit differently, maybe it can affect that. But I could be optimistic. I could be being too optimistic. Who knows? By the way, I want to talk about this as well, kind of on a separate note. But Tennessee Governor Bill Lee signs a law requiring new citizenship vetting for voters if the federal governments develop a national database.
Yeah, so they have a database called the Systematic Alien Verification Entitlements or SAVE program that is primarily used by employers. And what they're asking is that there be a portal essentially to that database opened up to election officials. And so, should that be developed at any point that it is developed by the federal government, then Tennessee election directors would have the ability to run verification up against that database, which is long overdue. And honestly, it seems like they should be able to get access to that one way or the other. I don't think it's the kind of database you can purchase, but
Hmm.
it is something that certainly needs to be done. So if employers can log in there and take a look for employment, I don't see why election officials shouldn't be able to do the same. So hopefully that eventually happens on the federal level. That would be welcome news.
Yeah, at least the state's prepared if it does, is kind of the point of that law. So that is good news. Another piece of legislation that was signed by the governor, or it's going to be signed anyway, it asserts that AI cannot be considered a person in Tennessee law. Now, I don't think people would confuse it as a person now, but this is more about the future as AI kind of develops. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I've seen data in Star Trek, The Next Generation. I know how these things can go.
Yes, that's true.
And we giggle now, but I don't know why in the world this came up in my Facebook feed here recently, but there was like a Buddhist, the first robot Buddhist monk in China. And
Of
so
course.
often, if you think about a dystopian worldview where the robots come for you and viruses are developed in labs and things of that nature, but China's always like, yeah, this is going to come. Let's build the robot army. And so it does not surprise me that if you were going to see it happen somewhere, it would happen there. But these are the kinds of things that are proactive that I like to see passed when the fur is not flying, because it's a lot easier to pass a bill before there's a problem and to do it proactively, which is what we
Mhm.
should have done with illegal immigration in a
Yep.
variety of ways in Tennessee. I mean, we've known this problem is coming, and it's been a problem for 20, 25 years. And so trying to fix a problem, once you got $800 million worth of illegal alien education going on is a lot more difficult than if that law had been passed in 1976 or 1985 or 1995, saying essentially that education is only for native born or residents of Tennessee that are United States citizens. And so I like to see this type of proactive stuff take place, Yaffee, so that if and when at least we've already laid down some groundwork and some precedent in the state. So I think this is a perfectly good bill, and I'm glad to see that pass.
Brandon Lewis is with the Tennessee Conservative. One more story you have in your site today, Brandon. There is legislation revamping standardized testing for homeschool students and adding another option for college entrance exams signed into Tennessee law. Talk about this.
Basically, it says that you don't have to take the TCAP anymore. You can take a test through the local LEA, and that could be any kind of test that compares to nationally normalized statistics, and it also extends the ability for college entrance exams not only to be the ACT and the SAT, but the classic learning test, which about 300 institutions already accept as a standardized
Really?
test for
Okay.
college. So it's not anything that's new. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, again, just surfing the internet, it was so sad. I watched a little video online where basically they took a note card that had some very basic words on it, like a silhouette, uh, enlightened, a few words, and like took them around to high school graduates to see if they could read the note card. And after 13 years of education, like the kids can't read it. And
Oh,
so, a lot of this stuff that we do
yeah.
relative to homeschooling and things of that nature, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the systematic failure of equipping our kids with the fundamentals in Tennessee
Mhm.
schools. So I wish they'd major on the majors in the legislature,
Yeah.
but when you got a machine that big and that broken, nobody really wants to touch it because I think they all know in the end that it can't really be fixed.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Brandon Lewis is the founder of the Tennessee Conservative. You can check out this interview, much more at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Subscribe to the podcast as well and follow them on social media. Brandon, appreciate it as always, my friend. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.